Website goes viral as it writes full articles and papers in seconds. Last week, I talked about AI quite a bit, in context with visuals, the generators, the image generators that these AIs have, like DALL-E 2, where you type in a word prompt and it, shoots out an image that based on that word prompt in any kind of style, from photorealistic to 3D rendered to minimalist to expressionist and everywhere in between, and how that is going to replace a lot of jobs. I think a lot of people in the design industry, graphic design industry, and just all of those connected industries, creative industries that work for companies, are probably going to be replaced with AI very soon. I also heard a story this morning about Amazon eliminating its HR department and turning and using AI basically to replace their HR department. So they use AI to choose who gets hired to the company. So there's going to be a lot of things, and this is just another one of those things. So for writers, and I mentioned how it can spit out stories and things like that. I mean, you want to think about all the writing you did in school, right? Learning how to write the 5-paragraph essay, your intro with all of your points, your hypothesis and all the points, and each paragraph is a deep dive into each of those points, and the 5th paragraph is the conclusion, wrapping it all up, right? Now, you could do all of that stuff with AI, whether it's, any kind of length of writing that you want to do. And another thing they did recently that I forgot to mention in the last week talking about AI is they used AI to generate a Joe Rogan podcast between Joe Rogan and Steve Jobs. Obviously, Steve Jobs no longer alive, never did an interview with Joe Rogan. I don't even know if Joe Rogan's podcast existed. I think it was just in the infant stages when Steve Jobs was still alive, and I never listened to it, and I would be curious to see how accurate the AI depicted Joe Rogan's views on things, since I used to be a very large fan of Joe Rogan's, watched all of his podcasts since the beginning until he started leaning farther and farther more right wing, and would have been interesting. And I was a huge fan of Steve Jobs. Was sad when he died, and but it's insane that you could generate a podcast between two people, one of which is not even alive, and it's crazy. It's a crazy thing where these things can be generated so effortlessly, and as far as these papers, I mean, it's going to make teaching, like, I don't know how we don't have the experience with this stuff to understand how we're going to acknowledge it and identify it in life, right? You go to a website, you go to a social media post, if not already, very soon it will be almost indecipherable if you can tell if that was written by a human or an AI, And the thing with these AIs, especially with like the image, these AI generators, in a lot of cases I've seen with the images that certain AI image generators do, they will use artists' work as reference, and in some cases generate work that could be in violation of copyright. And I would imagine on some level, when writing articles and stuff, there will be some plagiarism going on. If these writing AI generators are sourcing from previously written materials, especially on a given subject, there's going to be some level of plagiarism. but obviously not as identifiable as, if you were to copy and paste a Wikipedia article instead of doing a research paper where your teacher can just bring up the Wikipedia article. It's a little bit trickier than that, but it's going to be the ability for people to cheat and not actually have to learn how to do things is going to be a very weird reality we're going to be living in. Not that those jobs would be in existence anyway. Aside from, Stephen King, right? You read a Stephen King novel because you're a fan of his writing. Eventually, they would be able to make an AI that is geared, that can learn how Stephen King writes a book and use that to generate new works that sound and read just like a Stephen King novel after he's dead, right? The Stephen King family could continue releasing Stephen King books posthumously. And that's crazy. And there's going to be popular authors, like people using AI generation, AI writing tools to write series of books that are all authored by AI, right? And it's just under a pseudonym, right? Like J.K. Rowling, not her name, pseudonym. Do the same thing for AI. Ghostwrite. It's going to be weird. It's going to be so weird. And it's going to be even, I would imagine on some level, some people can suss it out and can kind of figure out and tell, right? Like you can kind of tell if you're texting with a bot online, right? They tend to use language incorrectly or differently than people do in the common speaking world. Slang and things like that tend to be not present in a lot of cases when it comes to bots. But this is past bots. This is way past bots. And being able to identify it, especially if, in general, if our education goes down where people aren't learning that, whether it's due to the conservatives and their war on public education as they are currently trying to demonize every aspect of public education, whether it's labeling teachers as groomers and pedophiles or labeling educational books, history books, works of literature as evil and, should be burned, should be banned from schools. There is a constant and clear war on public schools trying to privatize education. If they're successful, or if just the evolution of these AIs removes any ability to know if somebody's actually learning how to write. It's like even worse than the idea of calculators in math class growing up. Right? Why do we need to learn all these things with math if we have calculators, graphing calculators? Like, this is like exponentially crazier. So who knows what we're not even going to be smart enough to read the things that AI is writing. And definitely won't be able to, soon, AI will be dictating the way people speak. AI will be dictating slang, right? On some level, instead of AI trying to replicate how people naturally speak and write and talk and using the common day vernacular of things, eventually that will shift and humans will be following the AI changes and evolution of speech. Wouldn't be surprised if that's the reality of it. But it's crazy. It's crazy. Because you can have, let's say, use a few AI tools, right? I'm somebody, I have I never learned how to write, right? I can write a few words. I have no creative ability to write. I have no creative ability to draw. I have no creative ability to to do anything, right? I'm stupid, I'm ignorant, I have nothing, but I have all of these AI tools, right? I have this idea, right? I can put the idea into a prompt, and that one AI tool can generate a story, right? I can take that, copy all of those things written in that story, and I can put it into another AI tool, and that can generate words. I can generate a person. I can even generate a photorealistic person saying those words. I could even put it into an AI generator and have it look like Samuel L. Jackson is reading the words I had generated from the first tool. And I'm just a person that's like, oh, what if a pig went bowling? Right? And now I have something that looks and sounds just like Samuel L. Jackson reading this story about a pig going bowling. And then if you take that further to the next step, where there's going to be video created based on prompts, you could then take those things and flesh out a complete movie where you have the Samuel L. Jackson character reading his lines, and you have, Ewan McGregor reading the other lines, and then you have Daniel Day-Lewis playing the pig. And it just generates all of that in whatever style film you want. And then you can take that and you can have AI generate the poster art. You can have the AI generate promo copy. You can have you can just create a whole universe of content with somebody that has no idea how to act, direct, film, write, design, has no access to these actors. And right now, it's probably not that easy, but you could get a lot of that stuff done with AI tools right now. So it's only like moments away. We are way less than a decade. I would be so surprised if in 10 years, there won't be like versions of classic films with different actors, different storylines, different edits, completely new movies. Eventually, there is going to be a film that is just like Toy Story 1 was the first full-length feature film computer animated. There's going to be a film in theaters that was completely generated with AI. Completely generated from AI. And I wouldn't be surprised if it made a lot of money. It wouldn't have to make barely any money for a studio to be like, that is the future of Hollywood. Because they only care about profit. And when you don't have to hire directors, actors, writers, sound engineers, cinematographers, marketing departments, graphic design departments, visual effects departments, if you can have all that stuff rendered in your AI tools, and it just, for whatever reason, that style of storytelling happens to coincide with what the popular demand is, the trend of the time is, and explodes. I don't know. It's just an insane reality we're living in, where these AI things, can generate believable content that's like, they're not perfect. Like the Dolly stuff, you can tell it's like weird. It's like a dream version where it definitely has all of the elements of, but doesn't look exactly like. Right? It's kind of blurry and like proportions are slightly off. But then there's other image generators that are just gorgeous. And it's going to be for everything, because none of these companies, they don't want to pay people. It's going to be crazy. And as somebody who creates stuff, it's like, wow, what am I doing? You know, like, I don't know. I don't know. It's weird. It's a wild time we're living in. And stories like this are just not that surprising, are just going to be less and less surprising.
New episodes of The Ray Taylor Show come out every single day. Subscribe on YouTube and everywhere our podcasts are found. Binge the full week over at inspireddisorder.com/plus. Buy Ray Taylor Show merch over at inspireddisorder.com. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Peace out!
Today is the day where you wake up and you realize that everything that you've been dreaming about, everything that you've been wanting, every goal and wish and hope that you've ever had can become real. Dreams can come true. What you manifest in your mind, you can bring to reality.